In a lot of video games, their fantasy locations are things we can only dream of actually visiting. You can never actually run across the fields of Hyrule, or visit the Mushroom Kingdom, outside of Universal Studios anyway. But there is one game series where all of the areas are based on real-life locations, and that is, of course, Pokemon. This means that if you visit Japan, you might unknowingly be in the real-world equivalent of a city from Pokemon. Recently, I went on a trip to Japan myself, and I thought it might be fun to visit some of the places that inspired Pokemon locations. And while I was at it, play Pokemon Go and take the real-world equivalents of Pokemon gyms and catch local Pokemon. Truly, this is the ultimate immersive augmented reality video game experience that you couldn't really ever get with any other franchise. Which city in Pokemon is the equivalent of which real-life Japanese city is something that fans have debated for decades. We know that the Kanto region in Pokemon is based off of the real Kanto region of Japan, which includes 7 prefectures: Chiba, Gunma, Ibaraki, Kanagawa, Saitama, Tochigi, and Tokyo. Additionally, in the Generation 2 games, Johto is based on the real-life Kansai region. In the Gen 3 games, Hoenn is based off of the Kyushu region, and in the Gen 4 games, Sinnoh is based off of the island of Hokkaido. But outside of Yokohama being officially acknowledged as the inspiration for Vermilion City, and Shinjuku being the inspiration for Celadon, Game Freak has not offered an official explanation for which cities in Japan were used as the inspiration for each area. Alexander Lawrence, who runs the Grand Poketour YouTube and Instagram accounts, wrote a Medium article where he makes a pretty good argument for which cities in real-life Kanto are the closest match to each city in Pokemon. And they even have multiple series of videos documenting their journey to visit each place and complete a full Pokemon pilgrimage across Japan. Inspired by Lawrence's trip, I also wanted to visit some of these places in person and see what they were really like. And I thought I might as well vlog the journey and show you all what I found there. Unlike Lawrence, I don't live in Japan, so I had to narrow down my choices to what I could reasonably see in one 2-week trip. I chose to visit Cerulean City, Celadon City, and Saffron City, all in the Kanto region of Japan. As Lawrence and countless others have also documented their journeys, and it seems like Japan is a very popular place to visit right now, this video will probably not be that original or even really insightful, since I'm just a tourist visiting from the US and I can only share what I've learned from an outsider's perspective using the few sources available to me in English. I just figured that since I was there anyway, it would be a fun thing to share with all of you. For the first stop on my trip, we traveled over to Ibaraki Prefecture to see Tsuchiura, the city that Lawrence argues was the inspiration for Cerulean City. So first, let's recap what the game versions of Cerulean are like. It's the second city that you find in the Kanto games that has a Pokemon gym. Misty is the gym leader of Cerulean, and she gives out the Cascade badge shaped like a water droplet. Some of the iconic landmarks of Cerulean include the cycling shop, where the player gets the bike, which they need later to traverse Cycling Road, and Misty's gym, where you navigate a large swimming pool with a walking path over it to get to the leader. To the north is Nugget Bridge, where you battle 5 trainers to try to win a nugget as a prize. And after you win, each trainer says, "I did my best, I have no regrets." This bridge leads into Route 24 and 25, where you explore a large park-like area with hedges and trees. At the end of Route 25 is a sea cottage, where you meet Bill and rescue him from his Pokemon transporter. And south of that is Cerulean Cape, where in the Generation 2 Pokemon games, Misty can be spotted on a romantic date. To the east of Cerulean City is Route 9 and 10, which leads to Rock Tunnel, an extremely dark cave where you have to use flash to light your way. In general, Cerulean City has a water theme, with the water-type gym, the bridge over a body of water, and the presence of Cerulean Cape. So, did the real-life version of Cerulean, Tsuchiura, live up to the Pokemon image of a city with a mysterious blue aura, all centered around water? Let's find out! We decided to make Tsuchiura the first stop of our trip because it was in Ibaraki Prefecture, far from everything else that we wanted to do. Our hotel was the BEB5 Hoshino Resort. It was called a resort, but it was actually quite small, as it was located in a large commercial structure that included a hotel, a bus depot, a train station, and a mall. Right as we pulled up to this big transit center for the first time, we saw a building with the word Kasumi on it. In the Japanese version of Pokemon, Misty's name is Kasumi, which also means mist, so it's a pretty direct translation. Can't get much more on the nose Cerulean City than that. Kasumi, it turns out, is a grocery store located in this mall, and it's named such because the city of Tsuchiura is located off of Lake Kasumigaura, Kasumigaura literally translates to Misty Bay, and as you might have guessed, this is the real-world equivalent of Cerulean Cape. The lake is joined by the Sakuragawa River, which runs through the city, similar to the river that runs under Nugget Bridge. Sakuragawa translates to Cherry Blossom River. Along this river in the spring, miles and miles of cherry trees are in bloom, which is why we timed our trip for the end of March, thinking that we'd have a beautiful spot to see some. The trees were starting to bloom when we arrived, but unfortunately for us, a storm was also coming in off the water at the same time. On top of all of the bodies of water in this port town, our visit to Tsuchiura was particularly wet. On the first floor of this structure that contained our hotel was a cycling shop called Ring Ring Square Tsuchiura, and once we checked into our hotel, we found out you could even rent bikes there. According to Japan Travel, Tsuchiura is actually Japan's first cycling hub, and there were posters in the hotel lobby for the Tsukuba Kasumigaura Ring Ring Road, which is a literal 180-kilometer cycling road where you can go along the edge of Kasumigaura. From this road, you can see Mount Tsukuba, which is the real-world equivalent of Rock Tunnel. Because the bike shop was in the same building as our hotel, from our very first moments in the city, we already could check off some of Cerulean's iconic imagery from the list. When we were driving into the area, we passed miles and miles of paddy fields. Tsuchiura is an agricultural community, where semi-aquatic crops are grown. Particularly, the city is known for the lotus root, which is a local specialty, and grown there from April to September. The city's mascot, Tsuchimaru-kun, is a cute lotus root character, and his face is everywhere, on standees, in the gift shop, and plastered all over the city buses. The city's emphasis on agriculture might explain in the game why there are so many grass types available on Route 24 just north of Cerulean City, and up into Cerulean Cape, like the Bellsprout and Oddish lines. Actually, in yellow version, you can even get a gifted Bulbasaur in Cerulean City. Bulbasaur has a bulb on its back that blossoms into a pink tropical-looking plant when it evolves into Venusaur. It doesn't look like a lotus flower, but it would be really cute to nickname a Bulbasaur from Cerulean City after the lotus root. From a gameplay perspective, if you add a grass type to your team, you're most likely to do it in Cerulean City. But not everything about Tsuchiura was represented by what you could find in Pokemon. We also learned about the Hobiki Bune from a display inside the mall, which are unique-looking sailboats that can only be found on Kasumigaura in the summer. Because we were there in the springtime, we wouldn't see any on our trip, but there were photos of the boats everywhere, and even a mural painted into the railing of a bridge near the 7-Eleven. These boats are one of the more iconic images that you can find in Tsuchiura, and nowhere else in Japan, so it stands out to me as some specific imagery that's nowhere to be found in the Pokemon world. Tsuchiura is an old city. It was once a commerce hub over 100 years ago due to its location on so many waterways. But with the advent of the highway system across Japan, water stopped being the main way that goods were transported. And a side effect of all the moisture in the climate here is that metal on fixtures like land bridges, stairways, roofs, and buildings throughout the city are covered in rust. This, combined with the gloomy weather of the storm that we happened to be in the middle of, gave the city a very different vibe than I got from Cerulean City in the video games and the anime. But this foggy atmosphere did at least live up to the reputation of being a city with a mysterious blue aura. On our first day in the city, we mostly got settled in and focused on getting our bearings. We went to the nearby grocery store and got some necessities. This has nothing to do with it being the inspiration for Cerulean City, but outside the mall there was a vending machine with Pikachu all over it. Pokemon is just everywhere in Japan. And for lunch, I tried eating some famous Tsuchiura lotus root at one of the restaurants in our little mall. In Japan, there are official Pokemon manhole covers called Pokelids. We saw several decorative manhole covers in Tsuchiura, but there aren't actually any Pokelids located here. The closest one in Ibaraki is the Tsukuba lid, which features Rayquaza, and is about a 30-minute drive away from where we were staying. But instead of going to Tsukuba, we took a trip by train to the local Book Off, a thrift store chain found all throughout Japan. There's a huge secondhand culture in Japan, and thrift stores are typically quite large and well stocked with goods, so thrifting there is one of my favorite activities. Ibaraki Prefecture is also far enough away from Tokyo that the prices are quite a bit lower than what you'd find in more touristy areas, like Akihabara or Shinjuku. The coolest find of the day was this Pokemon Sapphire that I got for 2,500 yen. I always hope that secondhand Pokemon games will still have their save files, and this one was not only intact, but it had some really rare Pokemon on it. It had what seems to be a legitimate shiny Golbat, and a preserved event distribution Pokemon on it. It had the Berry Patch Zigzagoon, which was distributed throughout Japan in 2003 as a way to fix the berry glitch in the Gen 3 Game Boy Advance games. It's always a shiny Zigzagoon with the OT Ruby, and it's always holding a lychee berry, which this one still was. Talk about a lucky find. This is one of only 2 legitimate ways to get a lychee berry in Gen 3. The other way being finding Mirage Island, which is a 1 in 65,536 chance. I love finding old preserved Gen 3 event Pokemon, because being the generation just before Wi-Fi made getting distribution Pokemon easier, they felt so precious and rare. It was extra cool to find this Pokemon in Cerulean City. The next day we headed for Kasumigaura Comprehensive Park, which is a large park right on the lakeside of Kasumigaura that has agriculture, flower displays, restaurants, a big sports center, and a water park. Ideally, it would have been great to visit a big outdoor destination like this on a day with nicer weather. It was pouring rain outside and extremely windy to boot, but it was our last day in Tsuchiura, so there was no time like the present to go and make the most of it before we moved on to the next leg of our trip. From the bus stop, it was a bit of a trek on foot to get into the park itself. There was a tiled walkway with stripes that lined the main road into the park. In the rainy weather, it was nice to see something colorful, but it was very slippery. The walkway took us through fields, a small solar farm, and then finally, in the distance, we could see the structures of the park itself. Kasumigaura is the second largest lake in Japan. In the late spring and early summer, this area is in full bloom with tulips, cherry blossoms, and the lotus garden right on the lake's edge. If any part of Tsuchiura fits Cerulean's bright pastel colors from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, it's definitely this park. As we entered the park, we saw soccer goals set up and some of the trees blooming. The park itself spans 460,000 square meters, or around 114 acres. So it's quite large, and a good place to walk and get some exercise. Definitely a great place to play Pokemon Go as well, with lots of gyms and Pokestops. I caught as many Pokemon as I could there to save as souvenirs, including lots of Japanese exclusives, like Blue Petal Flabebe. On the lake's edge is a tall Dutch-style windmill surrounded by a garden of tulips, which were not quite in full bloom when we visited. We were really a week or two too early. The windmill was built for the city's 50th anniversary. According to the Tsuchiura Living Guidebook 2016 edition, the city was established in 1940, so the 50th anniversary and the construction of the windmill would have been in 1990. 1990, of course, is when the first concepts of Pokemon were being put together. There's obviously no windmill in Cerulean City in the game. So it could be that it just didn't exist when they came up with the idea of Cerulean City, or it was deliberately excluded. If I had to guess, the Game Boy graphics back then probably wouldn't have been great at representing a windmill. In the summer, the bay itself is a popular domestic tourist destination to watch the unique Hobikibune that we learned about at the mall. As such, a lot of the facilities around the park are geared towards summertime recreation and activities, but the park itself would be the most colorful in the late spring when the tulips are blooming, and even in the winter there are light displays all around the park. The main building here that I was interested in visiting, the Sports Center, was the inspiration for the exterior of Misty's gym in her most recent anime appearance. The anime is not really consistent about portraying each gym, and they all have multiple different exteriors depending on what era of the anime they appear in. It seems like the most recent season that the Cerulean Gym appeared in was the Alola season, and in that one they took direct inspiration from Tsuchiura. Of course, we did check to see if this location is a Pokemon gym in Pokemon Go. The facility itself isn't, but a statue on the grounds right outside of it is. Of course, Chaz and I had to claim the gym, and we put some of Misty's iconic Pokemon from the anime in, Starmie and Gyarados. We just took Misty's gym in real life. In the game itself, Cerulean Gym is a large structure that looks identical to other gyms, but the inside is unique for its swimming pools with walkways over them. Right across from the sports center was the Swigo Aqua Park, which had large water slides and multiple pools with walkways over them. So we have the inspiration for the exterior of the gym and the inspiration for the interior of the gym literally in the same lot. There's the walkways with the pools. I think they're all covered up. Swigo means waterside, so it's the Waterside Aqua Park. The Aqua Park is only open in the summer, so it's a great place to visit if you're local. But ultimately, not as many international tourists come to Japan in the summer because of the oppressively hot and humid weather. If I ever come back at this time of year though, it would be great to actually swim in the real pools of Cerulean City, see the famous sailboats, and try cycling down the Ring Ring Cycling Road. The building next to the windmill on the waterfront was a small indoor aquarium, in which you could see up close some of the rare fish from around the world. It was very quaint and cute. a pretty far cry from Bill's seaside shack where he does his science experiments. For 100 yen, you could buy a bag of food to feed the goldfish they had there. I imagine that this activity is popular mostly with little children, but because I'm basically still a kid at heart, of course I had to do it. I couldn't help but think of all the water-type Pokemon that you can catch in Cerulean City by fishing, like Goldeen, Magikarp, Poliwag, and Krabby. After our brief moment out of the cold rain, we braced ourselves and headed back into the park. After walking a bit, we found a beautiful pond with bright pink cherry trees. When we approached the edge, more fish swam right up thinking that we'd feed them, and lots of birds also swooped down to beg for food. They were pigeons, just like the Pidgey that appear on Route 24. Is that a bit of a stretch? There are pigeons everywhere. The animals were expecting food because this pond was right outside of a restaurant. It was lunchtime, so we went in and ordered some food for ourselves. Sorry, animals, we didn't share any with them. Chaz had a nice warm curry, and we both had miso soup. It was great to get out of the rain and warm back up. We explored the park a little bit more, but the day was half over, and we still had one more sight to see before we moved on from Tsuchiura. One of the most iconic parts of the Cerulean area is the Nugget Bridge, a long bridge that takes you from Cerulean City north into Route 24. In Tsuchiura, there are actually several bridges that cross the Sakuragawa, but in his Medium article, Alexander Lawrence argues that the Suigo Bridge, or Waterside Bridge, is the bridge most likely to be the inspiration for Nugget Bridge. And it makes sense. The Suigo Aqua Park was the inspiration for the gym interior, and of course the Suigo Bridge would be the most water-themed bridge there is. In real life, this bridge has traffic that runs across it, and because it's over the river and we were crossing it in the middle of a rainstorm, the wind was extremely intense. Normally though, this is also a bridge designed for pedestrians to cross on foot. There are 2 sidewalks on either side, and each side features an ornate cherry blossom designed railing, and an observation area to view the trees along the river in full bloom. It was a struggle to cross this bridge, but I did stagger across with my umbrella both ways just to say that I did it.
So we did it, we crossed Nugget Bridge.
We did it twice, even.
I did my best, I have no regrets.
And of course, I checked if this bridge was a Pokestop in Pokemon Go, and it is. So if you're here, make sure to spin the Nugget Bridge stop and send postcards from Cerulean City to all of your friends. From visiting the real-life Tsuchiura, the inspiration behind Cerulean City, I learned that rather than necessarily replicating well-known or iconic landmarks from each area, Game Freak gravitated towards cities that represented the elemental themes the best, and chose to highlight those aspects of them, rather than to depict them recognizably and accurately. I also learned that even though Pokemon is set in a fictionalized version of a real place, it's still definitely a fantasy rather than a realistic portrayal. The bright pastel colors of everything in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee's version of Cerulean are a pretty stark contrast to some of the rusty, real-world buildings, and sometimes gloomy weather there. But alongside some of the rusted fixtures here and there were many details all over that were artfully designed, like the illustrated manhole covers, decorative details on railings and bridges, and checked tile walkways. And of course, the flowers all over the park give it a pop of color that we're used to seeing in Cerulean City. It was a cool mix of thoughtful details that really made the area feel unique. Traveling somewhere in real life impacts the real people who have to live there. So if you decide to visit any of these cities as well, make sure that you follow local rules and don't leave any trash behind. I have more of my adventures in Japan to share in future videos, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my trip to the real-world Saffron and Celadon cities, as well as checking out the Pokemon Cafe. This month, channel members can also enjoy a full bonus video vlog of my first day in Tsuchiura, with stuff that didn't make it into this video, like finding 2 CRT monitors in the Sakuragawa.
Nature's healing. The CRTs are coming back.